States, and at the same time for those in the Philippines, a blessed afternoon already. But the wonderful topic that we have is that who are those who belong to, belong to the church, and those who belong to the church definitely are those who are baptized. And when we say baptism for Catholics, it means that you go through the certain growing experience of or ever greater in a ever greater moment of loving God. And loving God makes you magnify that love to your neighbor. And because of that, we understand more and more what it means to be baptized. So all of us, first and foremost, all human beings belong to the church. All human beings belong to God because we are all made in the image and likeness of God. But so beautifully that Brother Jess gave his exposition. He told us that it's up for us to accept our belongingness to God. So it's still, God gave us free will. He gave us intellect. So what does it mean to have the law that we follow? The fulfillment of the law, according to Jesus Christ, are the two words L and W, which means love and wisdom. Because that's the two faculties that God gave us. Love, the will, free will, and wisdom, wherein we are endowed with the intelligence of God, and that is where He speaks to our own conscience. And because of that, the law, when we follow that, the voice of God in our conscience, in the inspirations and the learnings that we have becomes foundational and even more, not only foundational, but becomes concrete for us, then we act accordingly from our hearts. We will and we passionately serve Him, and we serve Him through our neighbor. And that is the time wherein our love becomes projected to the church. Now, I did make an acronym of baptism, and just to run over that before. Baptism for me first is belongingness. We all belong to God. We need to make a response every day of our life by acceptance, which is useless when we have the belongingness, the love of God before us, but we do not accept it. When we accept it, then we come to that spiritual encounter with Him through piety. That's the P of baptism. We enter into the world of God in prayer. We enter into the world of God in spirit. And that is where prayer comes in. And T, teaching. That is why we have these wonderful apologetic sessions, because we want to really grow with His teaching, both in scriptures and in sacred traditions. And because of that, we understand where the church stands, who we are, and where we're coming from makes us know where we are going. And knowing where we are going, we understand what to do accordingly. And that is where the teaching brings us later on to involvement. This is part of it. The apologetic session is coming immersely involved into the life, and at the same time, life and growth of the church. And then after involvement, we end up serving. That is where we do corporal works of mercy. We become servants of the Lord in an institutional way, yes, in the church, to become brothers and sisters, armed to arm with our mission to bring about the good news to other people. That's why we have ecumenism and interreligious dialogue, which made mention of the Jewish people, which is part of our Judeo-Christian tradition, and also for the Muslim community, who speaks also of that one singular God, the ultimate being. And that we come to, continue to interact with them, because we know that they are part of our journey towards the salvation, not only of our church, but also of the whole humanity. They have a role to play, but can only be when we lovingly interact with them. And the church is rich because of that. We have a church here in the Philippines that is always attended by Buddhist monks in Binondo. You would be surprised. They are in their garb and yet they continue to be part of the sacrament. They don't really receive the sacrament, but they continue to listen to the word of God in scriptures, in the liturgy of the word. And that is so beautiful. And they feel the Spirit of God when they attend church. And they know that. And they accept that because it's natural in them. There's a nature in us that really seeks for the spiritual aspect of every human being, and further us on to our mission. And now, when we serve and when we learn to serve God, after all the letters, actually all the letters, then we end up affirming ourselves as family, a family, not only as brothers and sisters, but a family with God our Father in heaven and Mary our Mother. Mary is the last part because we continue to interact. A while ago, there was a statement, what is the significance? What is the saving act of having to accept the dogma? And I was going to answer that, but allow me just to share that every belief that we disown or every belief that we accept has a consequence also of our other relationships, not only with Christ, but with the, and if we later on, if we put that aside or take that for granted, we end up, pushing away certain relationships. And it may not be obvious altogether at once, but later on you would find out that it has its own effects. It has its own consequences. And that's the reason why some people ended up just being Catholic, but still cafeteria or broken Catholic because they don't have a relationship with the Blessed Mother. So the message of the Blessed Mother and the message of the church in line with the Blessed Mother becomes something that is a burden for us, no longer a contribution, no longer a loving truth, interaction of truth. So that's the reason why it's so important that the teaching itself bring us later on to that loving relationship with God. First and foremost, all should be redound to God's greater glory, and then to accepting Mary as our model and mother. Only then, all this network of wonderful experience as well as inspiration come together as part of the saving experience of God, only by God, to the church and to each and every one of us, and me, for myself as an individual believer. Thank you, and God bless.